I'm handing out candles, so everyone take a candle and hand the box back to me, or just throw it out. So thank you, Brad and Mara, for facilitating these events. Thanks. Thank you, Andrew, for providing your house. Thanks for hosting. And thanks for everyone for showing up. So I titled this talk, The Crux, because it's about, well, it's a very brief talk on a very unbrief subject, which is basically the meaning of life, right? It's like, quite literally the only thing that really matters, right? And I'm really happy that, this wasn't planned, but Brad or Mara used this painting in the advertisements. When I I was planning on using it as like the visual aid. Yeah. Because this painting is like, it means a lot to me. So when I was a kid, I grew up in the Latin Mass. And I never I didn't know what the Novus Ordo was until I was 18. Well, I knew what it was, but I wasn't really familiar with it. I was only familiar with the Latin Mass. And when I was a small kid, I was before First Communion, before I could really read, I would just go to Mass and I would just stare at the altar. And I would just be and then the only time you see what the priest is doing behind the altar is when he lifts up the Eucharist during the consecration, and you're oh, there's the focal point. That's the one thing that's, the only thing that matters, right? And then afterwards, all the adults go up and they eat it. And it's whoa, this is what it's all about. And, that was my first understanding of Mass, first understanding of God. And obviously that understanding matures with time, but that bedrock is important. That innocent understanding of it is important for a more mature understanding later on. And we'll get to that eventually. We'll get to that near the end. So the focal point, the Eucharist, right? He's holding it up. That's something T.S. Eliot. I'm a big. If you read any of my Snickle thing, I quote T.S. Eliot every single time, which is it's probably gets obnoxious after a certain point.
No, it's very.
But he calls the Eucharist. He was an Anglo-Catholic. He called the Eucharist the still point of the turning world, and from this still point, you see, Christ is giving us the past, the present, and the future of salvation history, and gives it to us in humble sacramental form. He's here it is, and here is a humble gift of myself to you. And then when you receive it, you consequently put on the yoke of Christ. So what St. Paul says in Galatians, he says, it is no longer I who live, but it is Christ who lives in me. In the life I now live in the flesh, I now live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. So kind of a way of expressing this visually and actively. So Andrew, can you come up? Can you come up here?
Sure.
All right. So you can see your candle.
Next. Well.
And can you light Teresa's candle? Yep. And then Teresa light Jason's. And then, you know the drill now. We gotta keep it lit.
Yeah.
Don't let it go out.
Oh, I didn't even see you there. Oh no, it's yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
It is.
I'm just gonna draw.
You see going.
Alright,
Through a lot of baptisms.
Alright, everyone's candle's lit. And you're all familiar with this kind of symbolism during the Easter Vigil.
Yeah.
Everyone lights the candle, and it's sort of to me it shows you're supposed to receive Jesus and then you become inflamed with the light of Christ. And then we're supposed to go out and then give that light to others. So when you receive Jesus and you walk out of Mass, you will be in a sense a mini monstrance. You're supposed to give that light to others. And that's probably the closest most people will get to Jesus. When you're going to the grocery store, you don't know the average person there, but you are bringing them Jesus in a sense, because he's within you in that moment. That's a very powerful thing, a very huge responsibility. But it's also, in our part, it's important to maintain kind of like the candle of your soul, so it's actually receptive of the light of Christ. Because you can sometimes try to light a candle, but like if the wick's all frayed and damaged, you can't really ignite it. And I think my interpretation of that is like fundamentally, when you get to the root of it, I think it's a lack of innocence and a lack of a sense of wonder and awe at creation. And I think one verse that I really chewed on a lot in college when I was kind of having like I was kind of taking my faith into my own, was that verse from Matthew. He says, when Jesus takes that child, he says, and Jesus calling unto him a little child, set him in the midst of them, and said, Amen, I say to you, unless you be converted and become as little children, you shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Whosoever therefore shall humble himself as this child, he is the greater in the kingdom of heaven. And he that shall receive one such little child in my name, receiveth me. Whoever receives such a little child in my name, receiveth me. So only when you humble yourself to that of a child, can you really receive the light of Christ and able to give it to others. And I went to college. So when I was a kid, I was homeschooled K through 12. And then when I went to college, it was like, oh, this is what the world's like. It's not like my little Latin Mass homeschool co-op, right? So it was like kind of a culture shock, but also like, oh, well, it's like a mission, right? You can't just stay in the Shire, Frodo, right? Get out, right? But I would just sit. So I went to ECU and I would walk. I didn't have a car for a good bit while in college, and I would walk to St. Peter's, and they had a perpetual adoration chapel, and that's a picture of it right there. And if the candles get like burning on your hands, it's okay to extinguish it. But I would walk there. It was like 2 miles, and I would sit there and I would mainly chew on this verse because I saw like kind of like the debauchery of the college life, and I was like contrasting that with the innocence of the innocence of my childhood, and I was like, how do I best be a light to my neighbor? I was also reading a lot of St. John of the Cross and T.S. Eliot and William Wordsworth, and I was also meditating a lot on my first communion, which here I am. So I was reading a lot of Wordsworth, and like this one, he wrote an autobiography called The OD, and the beginning of it, the beginning act is intimations of immortality from recollections of early childhood. And it begins with this amazing, I think very powerful quote. And he says, the child is father of the man, and I could wish my days to be bound each to each by natural piety. But during that time, so I would be in the adoration chapel, I'll be thinking about my first communion class. And during that time, we had just gotten this new priest. He's right there, his name is Father Famajo. He was like straight out of seminary. And he was very stoic. He was like very, had high expectations. And he would teach our class, and we had like quizzes. And we had a final exam. And there was kids who flunked out of First Communion. And they couldn't receive. They had to retake it. And
the following year?
Yeah. He was a very interesting priest. And at the time, it was like very like stressful for me, but looking back, I was like, dang, he really prepared us a lot and really made sure we knew what we were receiving when we actually did receive. And I was like looking back, I was like, dang, through like, it was like my childhood at that moment was kind of like a gospel reading, and it was teaching me, it was like, through recollection of early childhood, I was learning how to be a man. And I was just chewing on that, and it was like prepared my candle to be receptive of the Lord during that time. Absolutely. So, keep your candles lit.
You try.
Reconnect.
It's half gone.
with your inner child, and make sure that you are a light to your neighbor, and make sure you, bring it to others, and also be receptive of that same grace that others bring to you. That's all I got, but I think there's a lot to chew on, and I think that's all that's really needs to be said. So go to adoration, go to communion, go to mass, and say hi to Jesus.